Most people don't think too much about the ancient past. But then again, why would they? Most people's thoughts are taken up with the issues and worries facing them in everyday life right now. I mean, working the job, paying bills, interactions with family and friends, health concerns. These are the things that occupy the lion's share of our thoughts. Those who do think about and study the ancient world tend to be a bit skeptical of any of its legendary claims. For instance, many scholars of the ancient world believe that there were no real links between ancient cultures that were separated by great distances, say, between the Middle East and Europe. But increasingly, that is proving to be untrue. People got around a lot more than we might imagine. For example, people known as Phoenicians traveled extensively by sea, all the way from the east coast of the Mediterranean to Spain and even far out into the Atlantic Ocean. Some have even theorized that Phoenicians sailed as far as the Americas, but they certainly sailed all the way to southwestern Britain. Now, why would they go there? Because of the tin. It doesn't take a lot of digging, pun intended, to find that regions like Cornwall were a prime source of tin mining. British tin was exported around the ancient world. And of course, by land, people traveled great distances as well. Even before the Romans, there was a trade route that led from the Middle East all the way to India and possibly even as far as China. So would it surprise you if I told you that long before the era of Christ, there were links between the Middle East and Ireland? Now, this is proved by a number of Irish graves dating into the 11th century BC in which Egyptian jewelry was found with the remains of the deceased. How in the world did Egyptian goods get all the way to Ireland 1,000 years before the time of Jesus? Well, it's easy. People traveled. Problem is that when you go that far back, there aren't many ancient written records to tell us how that happened. And the records that do exist are usually from centuries later. They tend to record events in a very different style than what today's academic scholars would expect before they believe that an ancient event has actually got any truth to it. The ancients recorded their history and achievements in what we might think of as a legendary style. Why legendary? Well, because the factual, rather dry way that we record history wasn't developed yet. Ancient events and important happenings were usually passed along by word of mouth. This is called oral transmission. Oral transmission is made easier by composing it either in poetic or story format. Remember, the purpose of legendary style was not only to provide facts about the past, but to inspire people to live the kinds of lives that were considered exemplary and maybe even heroic. However, modern scholars and academics tend to take a skeptical view of anything that smacks of legend or myth. In some ways, they are right to do so because some of the myths tend to be exaggerated. But to dismiss all ancient records as wild and unreliable is also unwise. What's becoming more and more obvious is that many ancient legends do have a core of truth behind them. And one of them, it seems, could be the Irish legend of Teia Tephi. Now, who was Teia Tephi? She was the ancient queen who, along with her husband, Eochaid mac Urch, united Ireland under their rule. The hill of Tara in central Ireland is said to have been their seat of government. But who was she and where did she come from? Well, according to legend, Teia Tephi was a daughter of King Zedekiah of the ancient kingdom of Judah in what is now Israel. The kingdom of Judah was the ancient homeland of people that today we call the Jews. Now, she probably would have been born in Jerusalem sometime in the very late 600s BC. Okay, but how did she get to Ireland? The short version of the legend is that the Jews had rebelled against God by breaking the covenant that God made with them through Moses. The Judeans had been sent prophets to warn them that their greedy, oppressive, selfish practices, along with their satanic worship, had to end. If they persisted, God would send judgment. And for the most part, sadly, those warnings were ignored. Finally, God allowed the Babylonians to besiege and conquer Jerusalem, and the city fell in 586 BC. Most of the Jews were then deported to Babylon, where they remained for 70 years until the Persian conquerors of the Babylonians allowed some Jews to return to their land in 536 BC. A few escaped the 70-year Babylonian exile. Among them was the prophet Jeremiah. The Bible tells us that Jeremiah and other refugees, including King Zedekiah's daughters, fled to Egypt. There the Bible record stops, and most scholars presume that Jeremiah and the other refugees just ended their lives there. But Irish legend says that these refugees moved on, journeying to several places in the Mediterranean area and eventually ending up in Ireland. According to the legend, Jeremiah and his entourage rescued and brought with them certain sacred articles from Jerusalem. Among these were the Ark of the Covenant, saved from the Babylonian destruction of Israel's temple, the breastplate of Israel's high priest, the treasured family heirloom of King David's harp, and the Bethel stone on which their ancestor Jacob had seen heaven opened and angels moving between heaven and earth. The Bethel stone, now called the Stone of Scone or the Stone of Destiny, is actually built into the coronation chair on which all monarchs of Great Britain are crowned. After arriving in Ireland, Teia Tephi married the High King Eochaid Mac Urk. Their union was the foundation of the Kingdom of Tara. Together they established an era of peace and prosperity in Ireland that lasted for generations. The core site of their capital, Tara, Cnoc Tamhar in Irish, may be derived from Teia Tephi's name. Teia, along with Mur, tower or fortress, and Cnoc, hill, Cnoc Tamhar, the hill of Teia's fortress. So is the legend of Teia Tephi true? It's impossible to say for sure. Let's just say that there's a dawning realization among many people in this third decade of the 21st century that much of what we have been taught in the past should be called into question and maybe reevaluated. Because of this, it would be foolish to simply dismiss legendary claims to links with ancient Israel as simply Irish wishful thinking. We may have to upgrade many of our ideas about the sophistication, abilities of communication, and truthfulness of some of what the ancients passed along to us. It may be, and I say may be, that there are connections of modern people of many ethnicities with the events recorded in the Bible. And if so, that should cause us to reevaluate who we are and our purpose in these pivotal times. This is Dr. Michael Bogart with Aspect Ministries. I hope you'll like and subscribe to this video, and then visit our website, aspectministries.com, where you'll see many more videos like this one. We'll see you then.